Hello, welcome to day 13 of African History Month. Happy African History Month. It's February 13th, 2018. Thank you for being with me again for our daily African history series. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite historical figures and someone who I was actually pleased not too long ago that they received far more recognition than they had previously because a movie was done about him. And that man is Nat Turner. The movie was Birth of a Nation. And of course, I saw the movie and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, there were differences between the actual historical record and the movie, creative license and condensing things for time, but the core of the events of his life were there. One, that he was able to read. Two, that he was a preacher. And the interesting thing I find about that is he used the messages of the Bible. The messages of the Bible weren't, didn't keep him docile and not non-responsive to the crimes that were being visited upon him and the atrocities he was facing, but instead it motivated him to stand up. Because a lot of times, especially in the Black community, we're familiar with the tendency for the Bible to be used as a basis for, turn the other cheek, don't stand up and fight, wait for God to, deliver you, and, just trust in him, persevere and withstand any evils that you're suffering. But he got a different message, and his message was, stand up, fight, save your people. And it was interesting because he also was inspired by visions he experienced, and these visions told him to stand up and to fight the evil system that was oppressing him and responsible for the atrocities visited upon himself and other slaves. And so it's really interesting because that's one aspect I think that's really informative in terms of what religion can do, how religion can be used, how we've often seen religion, Christianity particularly, for the African American community, used to try to soothe and calm, whereas in his case it motivated him, it helped him to stand up and to demand not to accept certain conditions, unjust and vile conditions that no human being should be subject to. And he did rise up. He actually confided in very few people, and this is interesting because it's differentiated from the story of Denmark Vesey, where Nat confided in friends, people he knew and held in the highest confidence, and they were close by him. And another thing, actually, he was actually still in slavery, which is interesting. Yeah, he was actually still enslaved. And so he confided in individuals, and they communicated through code, most likely by song. And so the song was used to basically kind of coordinate when they were going to strike. And ultimately, when they struck, they didn't use guns. they started using, machetes and farm tools and things that wouldn't sound the alarm, things that would, so that other, neighboring plantations wouldn't be aware of what was going on. And what they would do, they would go to a plantation, kill the slave owners, and liberate the slaves, and then move on to the next. And they managed to, in fact, I think at one point it was up to 70 slaves and free men with him. And they were, they had conducted a very successful campaign of freeing people from plantations. And for 2 days, they managed to conduct this campaign before the campaign was successfully stopped by the I think it was a militia was ultimately formed to try to stop Nat Turner and his co-conspirators. I don't like using that, co-conspirators. His compatriots, his army. Yeah, Nat Turner and his army. It's interesting because the terms that are used to describe the history are less, I think, aren't as accurate as they should be. So for example, one of the things I had read about it was that he was fighting against he spoke about individuals who had subjected him to hardships or subjected the African people, black people to these hardships. And I'm like, hardships, that's a very euphemistic description of crimes against humanity. These are atrocities. These were vicious, horrible, despicable crimes against other human beings. And that to just to describe them as hardships is, but I think it's indicative of a larger trend within, I guess within the United States of America to try to lessen the significance of the evil that was committed by this government, with this government's and with this government's blessing, and that was enforced by the United States and its and the individual states. These were atrocities. There should be no qualification, no question who the villain is, who the bad guy is. The fact that people even try to look at Nat Turner as a terrorist it's like, what? That's absurd. But one of the things that actually I found hopeful was that the initial reception of the movie Birth of a Nation was, one of just it received such a great reception, and I was like, wow, I was surprised, because I didn't know, because there's an expectation that many more people will continue to have this aversion to dealing with the truth of American history. And I was pleased that there were enough people that were willing to accept the evils of American history as they were, evil, point blank period, and to recognize Nat Turner as someone that everybody should be able to empathize with and realize is a hero. And he died a hero. He fought, he stood up, he fought against this evil system. He freed individuals, and he went to war. He took it to that level. He was not going to just continue to stand and idly by and allow evil to continue. It reminds me of that phrase, all that allows, all it takes for evil to flourish is for good men to do nothing. He did not do nothing. He did something. He did something great. He stood up, he fought. And like I said, he is a personal hero of mine. And the fact that it's something that I think anybody who hears the story, who watches the movie, who studies the history should be able to look and say, wow, and empathize and identify with him as somebody as like, wow, yeah, if I was in that condition, I hope I would have the courage to stand up and do whatever was necessary to throw these chains off of me, to fight this unjust system. And so, yeah, I was really pleased about the reception the movie received, and the critical acclaim it received, because it was a great movie. But I think it was such a great movie because he was a great man. He was the individual is somebody who it's easy to cheer for. It's easy to say, yes, that man is a hero. And I remember when I don't think I was ever taught this story in school, but I remember as I got older and I heard this story, and I was like, wow, yeah, I mean, it spoke to me. It reverberated with him. He's like, yeah, that's somebody who did what they were supposed to do. Because there's oftentimes growing up when I would hear about the horrors of slavery, and I was like, why didn't anybody do anything? Why didn't anybody stand up? And there were people who stood up, and he was one of them. He was one of the people that fought back. And I think I think the impact, even though the initial impact was one of blowback, which resulted in the deaths of many individuals, many Africans and Black people who had nothing to do with it, which just further highlights the evil of the system and the people he's fighting against, that ultimately it was a step to topple a regime that needed to be dealt with. So I thank you for joining me for today's discussion of Nat Turner. Once again, happy African History Month, and I will see you tomorrow.